Namaskar. I Adv.Juilee welcome you all in my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to burst 5 myths regarding the will very quickly, and I'm sure that you must have heard few of these myths, if not all. Okay? So because my clients keep me asking about them, so let's get started. The first myth: will must be registered, and if will is registered, probate is not required. Well, there are two parts in this particular point. First is about the registration of the will, and second is about the probate. And both parts are not true. So, registration of the will is not mandatory under the Registration Act. If you want to register, you can, of course, but it is not mandatory. And the second is about if will is registered, probate is not required. That is also not true. Even if the will is registered, probate is mandatory. Now, what is probate? I will cover that in subsequent videos. But in short, probate is basically you prove the will in the court that this is the genuine will of the deceased person after he's gone. And it is mandatory in certain areas like in Mumbai, Bengal, and Madras. So that's the first important point. The second point is that if no registration, then at least will must be notarized. Well, this is also not true. The will does not require registration. The will does not require the notarization. Now, what is the difference between the registration and notarization? So, registration you do before the government registrar office, and notarization is basically signing of the will before the private notary advocate, but both are not mandatory. The third point is that will has to be printed on the stamp paper. So this is also the biggest myth that people think, okay, my will has to be on a stamp paper, then only it is valid. Well, this is also not true. Your will can be on a plain paper without any stamp paper. Even if you decide to register your will, then also there's no stamp duty paid on the registration. So no stamp paper is required. The next myth is that will has to be printed in a specific format. So again, there are two parts in this, that will has to be first printed, and if it has to be printed, then specific format like in other legal documents. But this is also not true. You can simply write your will in your own handwriting on a plain piece of paper, and that is also absolutely valid in law. So it doesn't have to be printed, and the specific format is also not required, that there has to be this format, then only will is valid. That is also not true. However, there are certain points which needs to be get added in the will under the law. For example, you have to specifically mention that all earlier wills are cancelled by this specific will, or you have to mention that I'm in a sound mental health and there is no force and influence on me while making this will. So certain points like this have to be added, but there is no specific format strictly to be followed. And the last but not the least is the next myth is doctor's certificate must be attached to the will. Well, this is not a complete myth. There is some genuinity in this. So that is basically, if you want to register your will, then you have to attach a doctor's certificate to it saying that you are in a good mental, condition, sound mental health while making this will. And that doctor certificate shouldn't be older than 48 hours. So suppose this is the 20th March when you are registering your will, your doctor certificate cannot be older than 18th March. So that is one important point to keep in mind. But as I said, registration is not required. So if you're not registering your will, the doctor certificate is also not required. But very important disclaimer I want to give here is that though under the law, it is not mandatory to register your will or to have a doctor's certificate. But if you think that when you are gone, there might be some dispute among your legal heirs based on your will, then it is highly advisable that you register your will and you attach a doctor's certificate to it, because it gives an added advantage to it. So still that will has to be probated. It has to be proved in Mumbai. It has to be proved before the Bombay High Court that this is the genuine will. But if it is registered, then it gives some more weightage to the will, basically. So that's about the 5 important myths about the will, which we need to burst. Now this is about what will is not. In the next video, I think I'll cover what are the some essential of the will, basically, which have to be, take into consideration while drafting the will, which is very important document because it takes effect only after the death of the person making the will, and he's not there to provide any explanations or to carry out any correction. So I think that is what we will cover in the next video. So if you like the video, please share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and take care. Thank you.